October 19th, 1999. The PS1 console and Sony hold 60% of the game market share in North America. There's a trilogy of Crash Bandicoot games out on the console, and Crash 3 in particular has sold 2.9 million copies worldwide just by the time the month of February rolled along. By June, the game will go on to be awarded the Platinum Prize Award in Japan for selling over 1 million units, becoming the first non-Japanese PlayStation title to ever do so. During this same time, Crash 1 and 2 were still continuing their flow of selling copies at a fairly good pace. And in that very same month, a young child named Yorm was just born and all was right with the world. Naughty Dog, the mad lads behind these games, were finally free from their 3-game contract with Universal. They were no longer bogged down by bad working conditions and a publisher hemorrhaging the lion's share of their profit. And now they could finally work comfortably directly under Sony. However, in the shadows of Crash 3's development, they had already begun working on the bones of what would eventually be one of the most revered kart racers of all time: Crash Team Racing. Crash Team Racing is a special game. Its seat alongside the sea of kart racers from its time, and today is an impressive one. Its boost mechanic meant that no matter what kind of player you were, there was a playstyle for anyone. You could spend your time driving forward, occasionally getting a couple of boosts from speed pads and around sharp corners, or become a madman boosting sideways for the entirety of races. Its character kart system meant that players could experiment with different characters to find the class that best suited them. Did you want to blast through tracks at breakneck speeds with Tiny or Dingodile? Take things slow with a focus on wider turning with Pyrrha or Polar? Or maybe find something in the middle with Crash and Cortex? You have full reign over the control of your kart, and it led to a creation of a game that almost begs you to improve, a feat that few games in this genre were able to accomplish. I'm going to be upfront right at the very beginning. Crash Team Racing is one of my favorite games of all time. This video might come off a bit biased. Not really much I can do about that, we all have our favorite games. Not like I really need to be. I'm quite a fan of the kart racer genre. I played many of these types of games. Outside of Nitro Kart or Nitro Fueled, very few are able to get me close to the player experience that CTR presents. Its tracks, its gameplay, its mechanics. Everything in CTR culminates into, frankly, a one-of-a-kind experience. There's really no game like CTR. I don't really want to sit here and try to oversell it. It's an impressive title from an impressive team, and it needs to be talked about. I'm not going to waste any more time. You're about to watch a retrospective of one of the best kart racers ever made: Crash Team Racing. Crash Team Racing is a multi-layered game. On the surface, however, it's a pretty normal kart racer. Key phrasing here is on the surface. From the outside, Crash Team Racing does come off as your typical kart racer. The kart racer is a pretty simple concept to grasp. Each character gets a kart, you race around the circuit 3 times, the first kart to pass the finish line is the winner. During races, you have chances to gain advantages through power-ups, speed pads, or maybe even shortcuts if you're skilled enough. CTR can be a very straightforward experience, and that's seriously one of the most important traits of any kart racer. I'm glad Naughty Dog nailed this aspect of the game. The game has such a low barrier of entry, which is how it should be. The target audience of a game like this is family fun, after all. That's important to remember here. This game needs to be fun and simple enough for kids and their parents to enjoy, hopefully, together. This game does offer up 4-player split screen, mind you. In my opinion, it does a great job at being that family fun kart racer on the PS1. It's fast, it's bouncy, its controls are very nice and responsive. And if you were already a fan of Crash Bandicoot when you first played this game, then CTR was extra special for you. The fanfare here is really good. There are tons of assets used from the trilogy, so it's really fun to see where things ended up. Crates are used as the game's item boxes. Wump fruits are used to increase your kart's speed, very akin to coins in Mario Kart. Enemies like seals and man-eating plants make their return, and they work really well as natural obstacles on tracks. You can point out little callbacks to the trilogy, like the walls in Papu's pyramids being the same as the ones from Crash 1's The Lost City, or point out not so little things like the polar bear from Crash 2 being frozen and used as a centerpiece. Touches like this may just be small Easter eggs in the game, but it doesn't mean they're not fun callbacks to point out when racing. It really adds to the feel of CTR. It translates Crash's world beautifully into a fun racer that frankly really does feel like it's packed to the brim with content. Probably because it is really packed with content. Look, for a kart racer, CTR is a pretty dense game. I almost sometimes forget that this game comes loaded with 16 tracks and 8 playable characters from just opening the game. That character roster, mind you, is very solid. They really picked the Crash All-Stars for this one. Crash and Coco are obviously here. My boys Polar and Pyrrha made the cut. I've heard these two were originally supposed to be both one playable character in the same kart, but Naughty Dog couldn't get it to work. Thank goodness. I prefer these two separate. This way I get to single-handedly save the planet from a crazed racing alien with this little polar bear, and that just makes me laugh. We got Tiny and Dingo Dow, my probably two favorite bosses from the franchise, and of course Cortex and Engine. I never use Engine. This is a very good character lineup. If I had to only choose 8 characters from the trilogy, I think these would be my picks. Leave it to Naughty Dog to pick out a banger lineup like this. This actually isn't the full roster. Even though Child Me would have already been satisfied with this first 8, the full roster actually consists of 15 characters. You have every boss from the adventure mode outside of Oxide. That'd be Ripperoo, Papu Papu, Komodo Joe, and my boy Pinstripe. These 4, along with Fake Crash, or Trash Bandicoot depending on your region, I guess, can all be unlocked through the adventure mode. I just love stuff like this, especially in today's gaming economy where something like extra characters will most definitely cost you money. It's just nice to actually unlock these guys through gameplay. It takes you back. N Trophy makes a surprise unlock in this game's time trial mode. If you beat all his ghost times, you unlock him as well. He's definitely the hardest character to unlock. It took me and my brother quite a while to beat those times, but it's really worth it because N Trophy is a crazy good pick for this game. I live for his inclusion. The 15th character is only unlocked via a cheat code you type in at the main menu. If I'm being honest, I'm not really sure why Pinta Penguin is in the game. I don't dislike him or anything. It just seems like he's taken Brio's spot, if you ask me. You don't even have to do anything to unlock him. You just type in the code and there he is. In the PAL version of this game, I hear his stats are maxed out. That sounds incredibly cool. Unfortunately, I've only ever had the US version of this game, where he has the beginner stats, so he's never really impressed me all that much. Pinta does have the best voice line in the game though, I'll give him that.
Penguin Yay 1?
Each character is pretty much very worth getting. I definitely recommend you unlock them all. In my book, the more characters I get to enjoy these amazing tracks with, the better.
And enjoy is something you most certainly will do. The tracks in this game are so good. I adore these courses. They really strike this perfect blend of old levels and character motifs mixed in with interesting varying layouts slapped into racetracks. I love that each character has their own home track based on their personality as well. It brings so much life to these places. You have tracks like Crash Cove. It's one of the more simpler tracks in the game, which is a good thing since you'll most likely play this level first. I love how it harkens back to the beginning of this franchise. Crash and a beach just kinda go together. It might not look like Insanity Island directly, but it feels like Insanity Island in a way. It has a simple layout and a couple of set pieces. It's the first track and it gives me good feeling. Coco's Park is another track I've always enjoyed. It's another one of the game's more simpler layouts. It's probably the most basic in the entire game, but I can never bring myself to hate it for that. I've always found it pleasant on the eyes. It's a more peaceful track. I think I use it as a form of break from how crazy this game can get sometimes. The music here is also infectious, so that's a plus. Sewer Speedway is by far my favorite track. This track has everything I'm looking for in a kart racer. Driving through this sewer tunnel ended up being one of the most interesting track layouts in the entire game. There's winding paths, a couple of big jumps, this middle section of the course where everyone can decide to race on either side of this little valley or down in the middle of it. There's these rolling barrels that can crush you along this winding path, and it all makes for a very dynamic track. This place is also home to one of the hardest shortcuts for a young child to ever hope to reach. I swear to you, I don't know how many times as a kid I drove past that square in the wall having no idea how to get up to that place. It used to drive me nuts, but when I finally made it up there, yeah, Sewer Speedway is the best. Oxide Station is a work of art. As the climactic last track and the longest one in the game, it really leaves a lasting impression. It's windy, there's tons of boost pads, it just feels electric here. The motif of racing in Oxide Space Station is really unmatched in this game. The first time you perform that big jump out of the spaceship is indescribable. This is an impressive track. Apparently it could have been even more impressive. Oxide Station was apparently cut down to less than a third of its original size to fit in the game. I don't know about you, but I need to see what was originally planned for this place because this track is already crazy. Of course, they can't all be winners. Look, if I had to pick my least favorite track, it's Dragon Mines. It's not even close. The track isn't terrible, it just has never meshed with me all that much. I guess you could really say it's a skill issue for me. The track is a lot more narrow than the rest, and I've never really fallen in love with its look. An underground mine cavern can only look so cool on the PS1. And also, I hate that corkscrew part with a burning passion. I wish there was some way for me to avoid it. I mean, technically there is, but if you can make it through that shortcut flawlessly, please touch grass. I'm joking, by the way. I would love to say that the tracks are what makes Crash Team Racing so good, and they definitely play a huge part in that. Though the real credit of what makes CTR such a one-of-a-kind experience really goes to the control. So far, I've been purposely showing very ordinary gameplay. I thought it best to start out by showcasing CTR's much simpler side of racing to highlight how fun the game is no matter how you choose to play it. I did start this section off by calling CTR a simple kart racer, which it really can be, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that going deeper into CTR's control is where the game starts to come out of its shell. Yes, there's a whole simple kart racer right here for the taking, and a really good one at that. But it's not until you peek under the hood of this game to see CTR's other side. CTR's boost system is one of the most satisfying mechanics in any game I've ever tried. A simple concept it may be, but it allows for such thrilling gameplay that it truly is what makes this game stand out from other kart racers. Instead of like other kart racers, boosting is not just hopping into slides and holding them long enough for a turbo boost. Crash Team Racing asks players to do just a little more work. Hopping into slides is the first part of it. However, holding slides for too long will eventually spin out your kart. CTR is a game that doesn't focus on one big boost, but instead a bunch of mini turbos. While sliding, your boost gauge will fill out until it turns red, which then signifies it's time to release your boost.
The further to the end of the gauge you hold your boost for will determine how big the boost you receive is. After 3 successful boosts, the power slide ends, leaving your character with a remaining bigger speed boost. That all sounds like a lot, but that's pretty much the baselines on what you do for the entire game, and the whole thing happens in a couple of seconds. The boost system is designed in a way that almost feels akin to a type of rhythm game of sorts. The timing for a perfect boost is always consistent across the board, so the more you use this system, the more you'll understand the feel for it. When you first start out with it, your eyes will most likely be glued to the bottom right of the screen, focusing on timing for a proper boost. Obviously, that will most likely lead to mistakes during races, which could work more as a deterrent for someone wanting to use boosts as often as possible. However, if you manage to stick with this system and understand the feel for a well-timed boost, you'll be able to use it to your advantage pretty much wherever you want to in the game. A single slide may only be able to offer up 3 mini turbos, but there's nothing stopping you from ending that one slide and hopping directly into another, then another, and another. Before you can even realize it, you're boosting for the entirety of races. Okay, well, let me slow you down. You might have the skill of boosting down, but it may take you a while to conquer a full track at that speed. Bumping up against a wall or a poorly timed boost will pretty much completely kill your fire, bringing your speed back to normal. This is where the game really opens up its skill ceiling to its players. It allows players to make the choice of whether they wish to engage with the system as much as possible, or maybe just use it when needed, which I believe is CTR's biggest strength, its ability to give players a choice. Unlike other kart racers, you decide when your kart goes faster. You don't have to wait around for speed pads and jumps to give you boosts, you control your boosts. And once you realize this, it changes the way you can engage with tracks. Boosts can be performed anywhere, so it really comes down to how fast you want to go and if you have the skill to maintain it. I won't lie, trying to boost non-stop does have a bit of a learning curve. I've been boosting on this game for years, and when I first came back to it for this video, well, I looked like this. The amount of skill decay I was displaying was shocking, but I did find it really cool to have to regain the muscle memory the system requires. Boosting in this game is something that looks really easy to do, until the controller is in your hands. But successfully learning this system adds a new dimension to the way you get to play tracks. The tracks are already fun on a base level, but boosting through them feels so good to play. It really feels like all the training wheels have been taken off and you've been set free. You'll find new routes, you'll learn better lines to take, and you'll most certainly get to take advantage of everything these tracks have to offer, like shortcuts. Shortcuts in CTR are really fun to engage with because the majority of them have a skill barrier instead of just being hidden. They sort of force you to get good if you really want to consistently use them, which is an interesting design philosophy. Almost every shortcut is pretty easy to find, but the skill to reach them can vary. Take this pillar in Papu's pyramid for instance. It's a very visible shortcut, but if you can't make a good enough approaching boost to make the jump, you'll never reach it. There's a lot of moments in this game when shortcuts are painfully obvious, but if you don't have the skill to clear them, it's better to just take the normal path. If you're a player like me, that's extremely frustrating, so eventually you'll end up experimenting different approaches to get yourself into these sections, which turns into a really satisfying way to play this game. It feels so good to play through an entire track and successfully hit a shortcut 3 times in a row, paired with non-stop boosting. This is exactly the reason I love super speedways so much. Boosting through this track and hitting that shortcut is therapeutic on my soul. It's extremely gratifying. And you can say that about a lot of the shortcuts in this game. I love hitting the fence hop in Blizzard Bluff. There's just something so addicting about boosting into that perfect hop that gets you right over it. There's a similar situation in getting over the big wall in Polar Pass, but lately I've been squeezing my way between the wall and the fence. It's a much cleaner version of the shortcut. There's a fair amount of other shortcuts that require the use of the game's air brake mechanic, which gives you even more control while you're off the ground, which highlights just how much control of your kart you really have during any moment in this game, and it really brings everything into CTR all together. This is a game that begs you to play it. There's never really a moment of downtime in CTR. You're almost always making meaningful inputs during races, and really, every time you play it, you're always getting better. I think that's part of this game's secret sauce. There's always so much room for improvement, and it really leaves me wanting to play just one more race every time it's time for me to get off. CTR just has this way about it that makes you want to strive for a perfect race. Sometimes I'm so focused on my own boosting that I don't even use items because I'm so locked in on getting a better time. It's just that fun to race in this game. Simple as that. Of course, if you do end up obsessing over your times, the time trial mode is a great place to be. You can boost away on these tracks with no other racer in sight. You could race against your old times, attempt to beat Oxide's Ghost, and master every one of these tracks. It can act as a really fun mode to play when not doing anything. It has a slight addicting quality if you just want to play alone. If you don't want to play alone and you got friends, you could always hop into battle mode and assault them with items. I have many memories playing this mode with my brother. We'd attack each other with bowling bombs and missiles, and play around with the items that are only available in battle mode, like the invisibility. Sometimes we would just drive around because the battle maps are bigger areas to boost around in, which was always pretty amusing to us. It seemed like no matter what I did on CTR, the game always kept my attention. Crash Team Racing has always just clicked for me in that way. It's full of characters I want it to be, tracks I wanted to play, and a boost system that was dense enough that I could obsess over improving with. I didn't even go over all of its system's mechanics. I could sit here and talk about boost reserves or speed ghosting and all that jazz if I really wanted to. CTR is a game that always gives you just a little more than what you typically expect. A video game truly filled with love and content. And if you could even believe it, I haven't even gone over all of this game's modes, because even though this is just a kart racer, that did not stop Naughty Dog from adding an entire adventure mode to this game.
Welcome to the Adventure Arena. You can travel around this area and practice your driving skills. The dots and stars on the map represent warp pads.
Crash Team Racing's adventure mode stands tall in quality with the trilogy. Frankly, I don't regularly expect there to be an entire campaign when I sit down with a kart racer, so this mode has always felt extra special to me. You think the whole experience of the adventure mode would come off a bit watered down since this is a kart racer, but instead this mode offers up a fair amount of replayability. That's most likely because they really managed to bring the feel and a comparable scope of a typical Crash Bandicoot adventure, just translated down to a kart racer. Everything that would normally be present is here. The big hub worlds acting as warp rooms, the level portals displaying their collectibles, the big towering loading screens. Yeah, this is a Crash game, alright. You could almost say this is the first Crash adventure that warrants multiple playthroughs. The ability to pick any one of the 8 characters at the start of your adventure and the display of their class stats offers up an almost type of difficulty meter of sorts. The adventure does not scale based on the class of character you pick, so essentially, the different classes offer varying experiences to your playthroughs. It's almost kind of misleading that picking a beginner character technically means you're playing on hard mode. I don't want that to come off like the character stat system is ill fit for the adventure mode, but it is interesting to see what a class system like this does to the adventure mode. Each class fulfills its respective roles very efficiently. The advanced class by far is the fastest kart in the game. Flat out, there's no competition. The speeds you can reach in this kart are unrivaled. The turning of the kart isn't very great, but that somehow plays out to be an advantage for the most part, because that means boosting on straightaways actually becomes easier with a turning stat so low. There are 2 intermediate classes. Crash and Cortex's kart are supposed to offer up the most balanced experience with their stat distribution, seemingly showing a middle-of-the-line experience. However, further investigation through Bandipedia, the Crash Bandicoot fan information wiki, reveals this class has a greater emphasis on turning than what I once thought. I can't help but feel slightly betrayed from the way the game displays their stats because I've always thought these 2 had completely balanced karts. This then makes me wonder even more why these 2 share a class name with Coco and Engine, whose intermediate karts have a higher emphasis on speed and acceleration, with only a very slightly worse turning stat. If I had to pick the best kart in the game, I'd go with this class. The karts offer up a very comparable speed and acceleration stat, with just enough turning to really control your kart around tight corners. I would still recommend Crash and Cortex's kart if you were first starting out the game, because it really does feel like the most middle of the line experience. The beginner kart is frankly just too slow, and with its turn stat maxed out, boosting in longer and tighter segments is actually more difficult to pull off. That doesn't mean this class isn't highlighted in a few areas. 90-degree turns like in Cortex Castle or the Spiral and Papu's Pyramid are simply much easier to boost through with this kart. However, like I mentioned, with a base speed stat so slow, I can't really see how much a beginner player would actually get out of this class. Which is pretty funny when you realize you can rip through tracks with this kart, but only someone who has mastered the boost system will be able to accomplish that. In essence, the beginner class is best suited for a more advanced player. How ironic. Picking from any of these classes will bring you a different experience during your adventure, since the mode will have you race on every one of the game's 16 tracks. I'd say it's mostly about finding out which class will allow you to perform best with on the most amount of tracks is really what you're trying to accomplish here. Either way, I do recommend you play through the adventure mode at least up until the race against Oxide 4 times to get the full experience. At least that's what I did. Well, I really did 5 playthroughs to give Cortex a chance, but outside of that particular run, each playthrough felt different. Having to come to terms with the differences in karts made some tracks easier than what they were on other runs. I had to familiarize myself with each class every time I started a new playthrough, and I think it gave me a newfound understanding of each one of them. I also had no problem starting over my adventure so often because, quite honestly, this mode is really fun, and for a kart racer, it has an entertaining enough premise. This game finally introduces a new main villain in Nitrous Oxide. He's an alien, and even if his original creation was to be so ridiculous that no one would take him seriously, Oxide does more than enough to make an adventure with world-ending states in a kart racer pretty memorable to an extent. It's not only fascinating to see characters that would never get along properly having races, but when you realize this entire mode is everyone taking it upon themselves to attempt to save the world, it opens your eyes to how big of a threat Oxide should be considered as. This is the first Crash game where saving the world can be left to a character like Cortex, and it leads to some pretty interesting moments. You get comical instances like the world-ending entity of the game prior being used as the game's tutorial guide.
Welcome to the Adventure Arena. You can travel around this area and practice your driving skills.
You get characters like Ripperoo and Pinstripe pretty much talking smack to their creator.
What, you call that racing? Forget about it.
I love being able to hear from each boss's perspective on why they think they should be the one challenging Oxide. Even if it's supposed to be a more laid-back adventure, it's interesting to see these characters pretty much all being on the same terms for once. Saving the world they all share is a necessary common goal, and it really feels like they're all doing their best to accomplish that in their own way. You can actually feel how much some of them care. When you beat Komodo Joe, he's outright upset, not because he lost, but more that he doesn't believe in your ability to beat Oxide on your own. He's rightfully worried that you're going to lose the planet for everyone, and it shows a more apprehensive side of him that I'm sure all the characters are feeling. For a goofy kart racing story, it somehow has a more somber underlying tone than the other games. The silly alien invasion is the one thing that can sort of bring these characters together, a feat that not many Crash games will be able to do.
You're not so slow after all. Surprised me you did. Here's a key for the win. Still, I think you're not fast enough to outrace Oxide. We're going to lose our planet, and it will all be your fault.
The pacing of the adventure is by far one of its best aspects. Although the hub areas come off like Crash 2 and 3's warp rooms, the levels are not all accessible to you from the very beginning. The game pretty much railroads you into a fairly tight progression structure, and though that might sound bad on paper, the route the game pushes you in really gradually builds in difficulty. You start off the adventure with much easier tracks available to you. Crash Cove and Ruse Tube are some of the simplest tracks in the game, and they are a great place to become more accustomed to playing around with items or the boost system. Once you gather their trophies, you start to gain access to tracks that offer up more variety, like Mystery Caves and Sewer Speedway, tracks that tend to introduce some forms of shortcuts and choice of variant paths. I like this because it slowly gets you used to making decisions during your races. Do I want to take the chance to trying to make it through a difficult shortcut and possibly lose my lead? Or play it straight and rely on items to get me a win? This gradual increase in race difficulty is most likely why I'm pretty much okay with there being a hub world of levels with a semi-linear structure. As you get better, the tracks get just a little more complicated. It makes the adventure mode feel like a climb up until your confrontation with Oxide. That climb of sorts is just about rehashed through the game's hub worlds, which all come with their own thematic feel that are akin to reaching a new warp room or island in the trilogy. Hub World 1 is at the beach, which can always be used to signify the starting of any Crash adventure. Hub 2 and 3 are rooted in themes that show up a lot in the middle of Crash games, themes like jungle temples and snow areas. The respective hubs have tried their best to have tracks that correlate in their themes, like having Tiger Temple and Papu's Pyramid in Hub World 2, or how Hub World 3 is the only area that hosts the game's snow tracks, Blizzard Bluff and Polar Pass. This further instills the overall sense of progression the game offers in a very unobtrusive way. Hub Room 4 gives a sense of finality, with a theme that feels similar to reaching Cortex in Crash 1. This castle rustic location has only tracks that were made for previous game bosses. Engine Labs for Engine, Hot Air Skyway for Pinstripe, there's Cortex Castle, most likely the track that this hub derives its theming from, and Oxide Station. I like that these tracks are kept safe for the end of the game and are the biggest in stature. Outside of Tiny's Arena, which really is a long track just without anything crazy happening in it, the Hub 4 tracks feel very grandiose compared to the rest of the game. Engines Lab is the only track that has this big boost tunnel that's always pretty entertaining to ride through and attempt to maintain the boost it gives for the remainder of races. It's a track that has somewhat of a tighter path, so controlling that speed can be a challenge even at this point in the game. Hot Air Skyway feels almost dreamlike in a way. The entire course takes place in the skies carried by blimps that call back to the Cortex fight in Crash 1. The track has a fair amount of winding paths that feel really good to boost around, and big enough jumps that let you realize how big the scale of this track really is. Cortex Castle's use of 90-degree angles makes it a good candidate for a late game track, because getting around these angles requires a higher experience level of the boost system. Every hard turn demands you have a full understanding of the control of your kart, something by this point in the game you most definitely have acquired. By the time you race on Oxide Station, it's more than likely you are in touch with your kart. You've raced on and won every track in the game. You successfully made it through every obstacle, hazard, tight turn, and big jump the game could throw at you. Other than the track not having any type of hazard to avoid, Oxide Station really does feel like a progressional end to the racing journey. It doesn't try to be more than what it is. It's a long windy track with great set pieces, but it doesn't try to be over the top and take from other tracks. It's special in its own way, and it makes winning that 16th trophy all the more sweeter. Boss races are an incredibly interesting inclusion in the adventure mode. They strike a balance of a challenging boss battle mixed with just another easy race depending on your skill level. Because while they do have a chance of being somewhat challenging, they also offer up the same chance to be sort of a joke. Each boss race is available to you once you win every trophy in a hub room. The races themselves are set up as 1v1s. Boss karts are noticeably faster than the basic drivers and are not dependent on their actual kart class. This explains why Ripperoo can speed off faster than any beginner kart could ever dream of. The whole goal of a boss's strategy is to very early speed past you so they can assault you with their weapon of choice. Item crates in these races are designed to be very offensive to give you an edge in slowing down bosses and taking the lead. Each boss specializes in their own preferable weapon. It's a nice touch that Ripperoo is still using TNT crates as his preferred weapon of choice, as he will most certainly leave tons of them around the track hoping to hit you. Unfortunately, bosses do only ever get the one item to attack you with, so taking the lead in these challenges pretty much solidifies a win, as bosses will never hit you when you are in front of them, so it does end up feeling like a normal race if you're skilled enough. That doesn't mean I used to steamroll these races, however. They really can be difficult on first time playthroughs. The tracks can sometimes be littered with obstacles to avoid, and it can lead to some pretty frustrating losses. In my personal preference, I believe the most challenging of the bosses is Pinstripe's race on Hot Air Skyway. Let me tell you, that track and its long straightaways, paired with his weapon being bowling bombs, is a devastating combo. Do not let Pinstripe ever get in front of you on those straightaways. He will wreck you. I guess the technical hardest boss would actually have to go to Oxide's race. He's the only person in the entire game that manages to pull off a blatant cheat right in front of you. The self-proclaimed fastest racer in the galaxy can't even wait for the green light to take off. That cheat will give him a fairly nice early lead, allowing him to show you that he drops every type of weapon the previous bosses used. Oxide Station is a considerably tight course, so these items are actually pretty difficult to avoid. Oxide himself is no faster than any other boss, but he does have the ability to take a hit and keep the majority of his momentum. He'll spiral out, but he somehow manages to keep moving forward while taking damage. I guess his hovercraft doesn't apply to the same logic as the karts do. That really makes the playground rumor of Oxide being playable burn even more because I've always wanted to use him. Though despite all of Oxide's cheating, he's a very beatable boss like the other ones. Finishing this race in first solidifies the Earth's fate, thus saving the world, making whichever character you selected a bona fide hero. Although with Oxide's pride on the line, he offers you one last challenge for the title of fastest in the universe, thus setting up the postgame.
I never lose! How embarrassing! I'll be the laughing stock of all Gasmoxia! Fine! Your miserable planet stays gushy and green. At least you still haven't gathered all my time relics. Until you've collected all of those and race me again, you'll never be able to claim you are the fastest. This won't be the last time you'll face nitrous oxide. We will meet again.
The post-game of CTR echoes the post-games of the trilogy. It's mostly about going back to the previous tracks and gathering remaining collectibles that were once locked away. There's a hint of Crash 3's level unlock system in Sly Coliseum and Turbo Track, requiring specific completion goals met before they're unlocked to you. The collectibles offer up a fair bit of challenge, making that 101 completion a bit of a rewarding grind. CTR tokens are pretty fun to collect. Throughout races, the letters CTR are scattered around tracks and need to be gathered. You also need to come in first place with those letters collected, or lose them and have to start over. It can be a nice change of pace to spend portions of races having to juggle between racing for first place while also keeping your eyes peeled for a letter. If you're like me, you'll spend lap 1 looking for all 3 letters and use the remaining laps to get into first place. That really depends on your skill set, however, because if you still aren't too acquainted with boosting, getting back to first place and trying to collect these things can really be difficult. Letters can pretty much be anywhere, tucked tightly behind corners, floating off from big jumps, and some are some tougher to reach areas that sometimes require a well-timed boost and a jump to be reached. Take the T in Crash Cove. If you do not have the skill to make this lake jump into this shortcut, or never knew it existed, you'll never receive your token. CTR tokens almost require you to go back through each track to observe and sometimes play them differently than what you may have done in the past, and it really does offer up a fair bit of challenge. I like that getting these tokens offers up a nice balance of difficulty, never teetering too far in one direction. Naughty Dog could have gone all out on these collectibles and hid the letters in some seriously unfair places, but instead I believe they opted for a fairer balance in letter difficulty that I appreciate. Crazier tracks like Sewer Speedway do a good job at keeping letter locations obtainable for all types of players. You do not have to worry about getting into the shortcut of this track to get a letter, which really does surprise me because that would have been a killer spot to hide one. Purple CTR tokens are a bit different. Instead of racing, you're dropped into a battle map to collect crystals before time runs out. I find these as one of the most fun modes in the game. There's a charm to driving around these tracks and picking up crystals. While it isn't that hard to complete any of these hunts, I do get a fair amount of enjoyment from finding a nice optimal route to pick crystals up before time runs out. Look, it's a Crash Naughty Dog game. We needed to collect crystals somewhere, and in a weird way, it makes collecting the purple CTR tokens one of my favorite things to do in this game. Relic races offer up a similar feel to Crash 3's Relic races. Unlike time trial mode, which really is just get to the end of a race as soon as possible, time crates are included here and can be used to stop the timer. You still need to complete the track in 3 laps. However, now you need to make sure you are picking up as many crates as possible during each lap to keep the time down. Unlike the time trial mode that forces you to optimize lines for the fastest times, Relic races require you to race wherever there are remaining crates. This will force you to go pretty much everywhere during the trial to keep that clock from moving. This adds a new dimension of how you can approach these races, because now you have to focus on coming up with a 3-lap route for your best time. If you're like me, this will lead to a very rewarding game structure because it makes you obsess over figuring out how you want to tackle each trial the same way Crash 3 Relic races did. However, unlike Crash 3's Relic races, you do receive a performance bonus on crate completion. Breaking every crate in a trial takes off 10 seconds from your final time, making every crate extremely valuable. I can pretty much guarantee if you do break every box in a Relic race, you're going to receive some type of Relic. I actually had to turn around during my Mystery Caves Relic race to go back for a crate, and I still received a Platinum Relic for my time. That 10-second bonus truly is a blessing. Getting every relic this time around really was a breeze for me, which came off as a big surprise because I used to dread this mode as a kid. I am not exaggerating when I say relic races used to be impossible for me to complete. That would most likely come from me not knowing about the 10-second bonus in the first place, so I could see where most of my struggle came from. These days, I tear through this section and I can't get enough of it. In Crash 3, I know most people do not really care for the relic runs, as mastering a form of speedrun through each level might not appeal to everyone. But in CTR, I feel like this mode has a good spot in the game. Each race is already a race against time in a way, so adding the crates mixes things up just a bit. You get to try your luck at earning Sapphire, Gold, and Platinum Relics again, just like in Warp. This is probably the best game to go for an all Platinum Relic run. I've never done it myself, but I can see myself doing it one day because these Relic runs are really worth the challenge. They make getting that 101 completion rate pretty interesting. In a similar vein to the end of Crash Warp, after collecting everything the game has to offer, you receive your final challenge. One more race with nitrous oxide to claim the title of fastest in the galaxy. The race is identical to the first one. Oxide cheats again, and he throws out the same items as before, but it's more about the journey more than anything else. You've raced and won on each track in the game more than once. You've collected every key, token, relic, and gem the game has to offer. You stood on that first place podium for so many challenges, and you get to do it one last time. You watch Oxide stomp like a baby because he lost. He flies back to his spaceship in defeat, scoffs at the idea of your win, and flies away never to be seen again. It's a charming ending. You raced so well that you managed to fight off an entire alien invasion. You saved the entire world, all without getting out of your kart.
You beat me once again! Now I have to go back to the planet Gazmoxia a complete loser! I must be getting slow in my old age. That's it! I'm finished racing in these mushy backward worlds! Keep your miserable planet! I'm out of here for good!
I never talk about credits in these videos directly, but CTR's final credits are at least worth mentioning. There's a surprising bit of solace added to the credits when you do get that 101%. Each character gets a funny enough bio on what they're going to do now that the world is safe. It's all just funny fanfare you see in any game. Crash sold his life story and is going to be made into a movie, apparently. If you need to find him, he'll be doing what he loves best, napping. Cortex went back to being a scientist, and he even discovered a new element. Of course, things could never go that simple for the guy. My boy Polar is taste testing ice cream, and I couldn't be happier because he deserves a peaceful life. It's all just silly entries like the ones from Crash 1's credits, but once the credits finally end, you get access to the Naughty Dog scrapbook. It holds a ton of old concept art and developer photos of everything Crash Bandicoot from 1994 to 99. It's a really cool watch if you stayed with the franchise through the PS1 era. It starts with an actual picture of a real-life Bandicoot. Before going into some pre-concept art, you get to go through this brief evolution of the franchise at that point. Seeing old promotional art of all the Crash characters and developers in the office and at E3 through the years is something that really speaks to me every time I see it. I can never bring myself to skip any of this. I specifically have always loved the photo of them changing Jason Rubin's car from red to pink and having Coco stand next to it like it's hers. It's always amused me for some reason. There's even stuff from Crash's Japanese side present. This scrapbook is full of a bunch of great photos, and you should definitely check it out if you haven't already. It was really surprising the first time I saw it all. You know, it's hard not to get a bit overwhelmed when all this plays. I don't know, hearing the music, seeing all the levels you played over the years in their concept form, even the pictures of the developers working on the games with those fat computers. It's a really unexpected treat at the end of a 4-game arc to see this kind of stuff. Naughty Dog was well aware that this was truly the end of their time with Crash, and I've always found this as their last gift to the players. That thanks for playing at the end, to me, has always come off as a thank you not just for playing CTR, but any Crash game. 1, 2, or 3, I don't think it mattered. Naughty Dog was showing their appreciation for the love of a character and franchise they and we all have come to love, and I appreciate the effort in it all. The last shot being all the developers' signatures is a beautiful thing to go out on. Naughty Dog's time with Crash may have met its end here, but the passion and fun they left behind with their games is something that will last forever. What I admire most about Crash Team Racing is how it instills a passion in the people who play it. CTR is still going, in a sense. I guess you could say the race has never really stopped. What I mean in this is this kart racer still has a community of players that still to this day take this game to another level. A level that really surprised me back when I first discovered it. I remember that first time watching Games Done Quick 2017 and seeing Natty1 speedrun of the any % category. My jaw just about hit the floor just about as soon as the run started. I had played this game for years and never known once you could boost that much. Watching Natty1 tear through these tracks and showing off crazy skips you can pull off in this game was really mind-blowing for me at the time. This type of gameplay looks pretty normal nowadays, but back when I first experienced it, it really opened my eyes to how much players could push CTR. I remember the first thing I did after watching that run was hopping on CTR to see if I could boost like that. Natty1's CTR marathon run was fantastic, and it's pretty much the reason I even started watching speedruns of this game to begin with. I'm telling you, I used to watch tons of other speedruns and challenges on YouTube. Watching RedHotbr play entire races without touching the gas pedal was always a treat to see. I used to spend so much time on his channel. These days, watching HypnoShark destroy this game is just as fun. That guy is a madman. He seriously pushes Crash Team Racing to another level with his content and speedruns. I have watched him break many world records. I could not recommend watching him enough.
Yes! 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 Come on! Yes! Oh my god, man.
Crash Team Racing also has very strong mod community support. There's a group of really talented individuals who add new things to this game all the time. I've seen whole Spyro levels turned into playable tracks, if you could believe it. You can even play as Spyro himself on his skateboard, and it looks pretty cool. I've even seen Jack and Daxter. Daxter is super tiny in his kart, but he looks awesome. And Jack's model looks pretty good, if I'm being honest. One of the coolest additions I've seen is Biker Crash, along with his motorcycle as his kart, something Nitro Fueled never did for some reason. This does in fact look hilarious, but I'm happy it exists. My favorite of these mods is the inclusion of Brio and Rillaroo because they look so natural in their karts, especially Brio. It's almost like Brio should have been here from the beginning. Brio should have made the roster. I'm still thinking about it. This type of mod support is so impressive, and it warms my heart to see this type of stuff. Of course, if I'm talking about CTR mod support, then I can't leave out the big one, online CTR. I remember when this trailer came out. I could not believe it. After 5 years of research and development, a team of mods were able to get every track in this game playable online at 60 frames per second with widescreen and 8-player support. What? How does something like this even exist? This, if it's not the greatest, is one of the biggest Crash Bandicoot community achievements ever made. You can play this 1999 kart racer with any of your friends online with worldwide servers. And while I may not have gotten a chance to play it myself yet, I've watched many races online and the connection looks really stable. It also looks incredibly sweaty, so I don't think I'm quite ready to play it yet. Either way, the fact that something like this is real, that any of this kind of stuff exists, proves how strong of a foundation the core game of CTR is. Just seeing that this game has this level of hold on people to make them want to keep the race going after all these years is a testament to what Naughty Dog made. Crash Team Racing is a game that goes well beyond the confines of the PS1, and even the confines of Naughty Dog. Crash Nitro Kart is a perfect example. Even though this is a game on a different console and from a different team, I 100% consider this game an extension of Crash Team Racing. It might as well be a direct sequel to it. The plot is pretty similar, the presentation is reminiscent of CTR, and most importantly, it plays a lot like it. The boost system in C&K feels so natural when you try it. Any Crash Team Racing player will feel right at home here. And that goes double for Nitro Fueled, which really is the culmination of the previous two games wrapped into this amazing bundle. There might be a slight difference in the weight of your kart, but both of these games and their systems, along with the amount of kart control they offer, would not be possible without Crash Team Racing. This goofy little kart racer somehow is still impressing me all these years later with what it stands for. It is a beautiful game that has given me countless hours of fun over the years. And hey, I know it's not perfect. The game's item balance, in my opinion, is completely out of whack. Sometimes in second place, you'll get overpowered weapons. The items themselves are strong, but not strong enough to really make up a lot of ground if you get too far back like you can in other kart racers. The boost system technically allows the game to get pretty sweaty once you know what you're doing. This is supposed to be a family game, but my family would never catch me boosting sideways at max fire. The game also doesn't really do a good job at telling you what's really possible with the boost system. I guess that was their way of keeping things balanced for the most part. Every game has its problems, and for kart racers, I've always felt the biggest problem is how similar they can all feel to each other. I do not have to worry about that for Crash Team Racing. This is a game that found its own lane in this genre. A genre that still today is plagued with games that are painfully similar to each other. Thank goodness CTR is different. It is the thing I'm most happy about with this game. That it could boost out ahead of every other game like it, and it still somehow manages to be one of a kind.
Try and go into a concrete parking lot and make you my slaves. Get ready to race for the fate of your planet.